Oh, you saw me chewing my cud. How funny is that? How funny is that? What's going on, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix, and I am back here on Sunday night. Let me send out a quick notice to Twitter to let the people on Twitter know that I am live at this time, and they can come on over and hang out. So let's get that going. I am working on some new technology here tonight, and that's why it's taken me a while. It's going okay. Um, yeah, it's going okay. I'd like to expand on it a little bit. That would be good. Oh my God, I can't believe you guys saw me chewing my cud, man. Yeah, so just to give you an idea here, I'm actually in a different part of the Scorpion Kingdom, and I'm standing up. I normally do the show upstairs, and pretty much a regular background, but I've invested in a green screen, which is behind me, which is why this looks so like intact, right? Normally, if I didn't have a green screen, I'd be blurring all over the place and I'd look like an acid flashback. But I have one. It's not quite ideal because there are things that I want to do with the green screen, and I'm using it as kind of a teaching tool with astrology. So think of me as a weatherman right here, pointing out like aspects in a chart. Wouldn't that be cool? I got to work on that. That's part of the new plan here. But you can see I can move around. It feels like I'm kind of out here in fake Earth, right? So thank you for being here, and thank you for being patient as I try to get all this. I had to come into this other space, and I have like years and years and years worth of CDs that I'm trying to figure out what to do with. A lot of them I've never listened to because I used to be in the music world, and I have a lot of CDs from various labels, and some of them quite obscure, and some of them I'm actually looking forward to listening to. Here, I'll just pull a few off right here. See what we have. Yeah, this is pretty cool, right? So this is from a music conference called Sonar 98. This is a Spanish music conference. And a lot of kind of electronic hip hop, trip hop. This one is called Ageless Pathways. I've never even opened this. And it sounds like a very new agey thing. It is. Steve Kindler, Georgia Kelly, she's a harp player. Let's see what else do I have here. These are just random CDs I'm picking. This is from the King Size label. I have a bunch of these CD singles. This is like a breakbeat live. Really good stuff, by the way. I don't know what to do with it. I mean, it would be great if I could just get all these on a hard drive and honestly eliminate some of these. And I was thinking, like, how many people have just shitloads of CDs? I was thinking about the end of the world and CDs and what would be around. Here's another one. Early recordings of Irish music in America. I've never listened to this. It might be interesting. Now here's a good one. My buddy Stephen Kent. Now I have heard this. I've had multiple copies of this, even though it's not open. I have listened to it many times. And I sort of remember listening to this one. It had a very Eastern European feel to it. Kind of tribal, ethnic. What else do I have? Oh, then I found this. You know, you go through all these boxes. Go through all these boxes and you find a bunch of shit. And I found all of these signed promotional cards for Cliff Pennington, who used to play for the A's. If you're a relative or a friend of Cliff Pennington, I have lots of these, and they're all signed. It was Cliff Pennington Day, and we were there. And somehow I wound up with all these signed Cliff Pennington cards. So if you are a fan of Cliff Pennington, or you're a family member of Cliff Pennington, you want one of these, I'll send you one. I will send you one. And what else do we have here? Oh, these were the tickets. What is this? Friday, August 31st. Athletics versus the Red Sox. Oh, that's right. We crushed the Red Sox that day. Totally crushed them. Massive. Well, I'm just doing this so people can kind of arrive and get here, and we can begin to congregate. Got a lot of astrology we're going to cover tonight. If you haven't noticed it, we're living in the new age now, or the Aquarian Age. The Aquarian Age is here. It has arrived. It arrived this weekend. If you were paying attention, it arrived this weekend. And I have all the receipts to prove that it did arrive this weekend. And let's see, what else do we have? Any other interesting CDs here? Some of them are not that interesting. Some of them kind of are. So I got some more king size here. What is this? Some of this shit I've never even listened. This is Kenji Williams. Pretty good. Kenji went on to become this ambassador for like global warming. And he goes around the world and he performs with singers and dancers. He's a violin player, electronic musician. He has all these images from out here in space. And a lot of it chronicles like, you know, what's going on with the earth and all that shit. And I like Kenji. He's a good guy. I knew him from San Francisco. And then I went to his live performance in Austin, and it really just was you know, like climate change propaganda. But he's making a good living. And he's flying around and he gets to play music. So I don't know. I mean, maybe he's in. Maybe he buys into it. What else do I have here? Yantra, Steve Gorn, and Badal Roy, more kind of new age stuff. And then I remember this as being pretty good. This is pretty good. I was really into kind of the breakbeat thing, white noise. I don't know if they can get away with this now. I'm not sure if they can get away with white noise. Who's on this? Lunatic Calm, I think that's a kind of a drum and bassy thing. Dub Pistols, Uber Zone, Freestylers featuring Tenor Fly. Tipper, this is a good record. I remember playing this one. This one I've never heard. It's called Spool, and it looks pretty interesting. It's Janot and John Ridenour, with Charles Searles on drums, Brian Bowman on drums, and Susan Voles on violin and hand claps. This is recorded at Delicate Ear Studio in San Francisco. It's kind of interesting. I've never even opened it. So there you go. That was my day, trying to get this stuff together and make some space for this studio that you and I are now currently in, or I'm in, and you're kind of in it with me. We have a lot to talk about tonight. The world seems to be going to hell in a handbasket, but I'm here to tell you that this is all going according to plan, and we're at a major turning point in the consciousness of humanity. And just because they don't show it on the evening news or the mainstream media doesn't mean that it's not happening. Okay, it is happening. And if you've been paying attention and looking at what's been going on in places like Paris, and Milan, and London, and of all places, Ontario, clearly Australia, the world is waking up. The world is waking up, and the world is activated. It is activated. People, we have been given the greatest gift. COVID-19 and everything associated with it, although very painful and challenging, is the greatest gift we've ever been given, because it has finally fucking woken people up. And some people are beyond the pale. They'll never get there, and you just have to let them go. But there are people who have been on the fence, or they've been kind of waiting around to hear their number called. Well, this is that time, and it's happening. And I don't think we can, put the toothpaste back in the bottle. It is happening. It is on. And we're going to get into some of that tonight, and why I think we are still in this very heated, I don't want to call it a competition. I wouldn't call it competition, but it's a very heated expression of two variants of one model. And the model that I'm talking about is this model that's based on some form of unification, where people have one intention, one will, one spirit. And it may sound scary to some people. Well, gee, that sounds like fascism. Wow, that sounds, wow, do we really want to have that? That sounds like the war. Well, no, because in the midst of all of that oneness are these tiny bits, hologrammatic bits that make up that whole. And each of those hologrammatic bits, even though they contain the larger picture in them, they're all slightly different. And that's me and you and everyone else on the planet who are in activation mode right now. And it's, there's a lot of really powerful astrological energy. Like these T-squares that have been going on have been extremely disruptive from many different kind of angles and vantage points. We've had ecological disruption. While I was away, all this flooding started to take place in the final days of Cancer, and so those final degrees of any sign where things get really turgid and, unsettled. And that's exactly what happened. And we were also getting into the trine of the Cancer sun with Neptune and Pisces, which is a lot of water. And there's some heavy duty weathercraft going on the planet. So when I say weathercraft, it's like a form of witchcraft or a form of stagecraft, right? They're doing things with the weather, and there are parts of the country that are dry. And I say country, I mean this country, there are parts of this country that are unseasonably dry and other parts of this country that are unseasonably wet. For instance, usually Minnesota gets a lot of late spring, early summer rain. They're not getting much, right? So Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, those areas are getting a lot less water than they normally do. However, here in Texas, we've had a great deal of water, more water than we normally get this time of year. So I feel like a lot of what they do is they of course, being the so-called custodians of this world, I feel like they can create weather, which we've seen. If you haven't seen the video of them actually creating like clouds in Dubai, it'll flip your wig. It'll totally flip your wig. So they can change the weather, they can create weather, they can alter weather. But I think for the most part, what they tend to do is they tend to direct fronts around. They tend to direct fronts, so they'll manipulate streams like the jet stream or the Gulf Stream. And when that happens, one area will get something that another area is supposed to get, and vice versa. And when things like what's happening in California with the water table there and them draining their reservoirs and protecting these endangered fish species, that has an impact on, let's just call it the Gaia-sphere. It has an impact on the Gaia-sphere. It's, when things happen, on this planet, when there's a lack of groundwater, then things don't happen atmospherically. Right? These things are connected. They're part of an interdependent system. They call it the ecosphere, right? So even when they do stuff like that, they're manipulating the weather, because normally they would have some, form of, at times, precipitation from the water that would go up into the atmosphere and get moved around. They don't have that. So this is upsetting the balance of the planet, and I believe they're doing it artificially. So this is where we get so-called climate change. And when you look at all the flooding in Germany, which was just mind-blowing, and I mean, it looked like mud flood land, you can get a sense that something big is happening. And of course, there's plenty of fodder for people who want to look at that and say, well, look, we're going through climate change. What do you expect? Well, you're creating the conditions for it. It's not the conditions that you're trying to sell the rest of the people on. Anyway, that has a lot to do, in my estimation, astrologically, with what we've been going through with these T-squares, these fixed T-squares, particularly with Mars, Venus in Leo, Saturn in Aquarius, and Uranus and Taurus. Now, Mars and Venus, as you'll see, have moved on a bit, and they've kind of gotten out of that hard T-square. But go back about a week, and it was really right in the mix of things. And I think there were 3 weeks ago, there were 80, no, 3 weeks ago, there were like 60 active volcanoes. And then 3 weeks later, like 82. So we're in a weird earth change phase. And again, astrologically, if we want to look at some of the, some of the parameters or some of the things that we could say, oh, that's one of the reasons why, we're experiencing these dramatic changes. Because when you get into Taurus, when you get into Aquarius, you're dealing with really very different, fundamentally different types of energy. Aquarius is going to be technological. It's going to be scientific. It can be good. It can be not good. I mean, this is the way astrology works. I mean, you can have fucking evil Aquarius, Dr. Evil Aquarius. And we're kind of seeing that with, Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset and, all the weird bullshit that goes along with that, right? That's dark Aquarius. You're gonna basically have nothing, and you're gonna love it, and it's just gonna be a lot less of you, because this is what we're deciding. And maybe, who knows, maybe they're onto an extinction level event. Who knows why all of a sudden they've just turned up the gas. But they have, and they wanted to do this for a while. Let's not try to lose the plot here. But perhaps the rapidity and the speed and the what I would call sloppy nature to some of this might have to do with the fact that there's something happening that they know about and that they need to control people, distract people, manage people so that they can be ready for the event and that they're not going to have to deal with a bunch of people who know about the event. And then it's like, well, we're fucked and we're going to basically, loot Walgreens. Well, gee, they are doing that, aren't they? Anyway, so that's that's an idea that's being floated out there, but it's also quickening people, right? Because they're working double time, triple time to try to sell people on the carjack. That people are really, again, they're rising out of their slumber. I've been teaching this tarot webinar. We're into week 3 now. And one of the things that we covered last week, actually it was last week. We talked about, we talked about it yesterday. We talked about it, I think, in week 1, which is the Judgment card in the Major Arcana, which is a very interesting card. And 2020 was really that time of the Judgment, or the Aeon, if you are into the Crowley deck, where it really is the end of one time and the beginning of another time. And there are a lot of things about that card that are quite interesting. A lot of it has to do with sort of resurrecting these corpses that have been buried, right? So the dead rise in the pictograph of that card. Let me see if I can bring it up for you guys. Some of you know what I'm talking about, and some of you may not know what I'm talking about. So I'll give you a visual. Give me 1 second here. And again, this is just an image from the Rider-Waite deck. Let me see what we got here. There we go. Where are we? Oh, it's one of these. Okay. Let's see. That's the star card. Death. Death, I say unto you. Let's see. I think this is it. By the way, if you haven't seen the interview that I did with Russ Winter, I recommend it, because I'm actually going to be talking about the chart of Sabbatai Zvi tonight. We're going to look at that chart. He's a character that is very influential when it comes to this idea of Sabbatean Frankism. So we're going to look at somebody who is a self-proclaimed Messiah and seemed to have managed to convince a lot of people during the time that he was alive. He was born in the 1500s. We're going to look at his chart. It's a very interesting chart. You can see in his chart how somebody like this guy can pull it off. All right, so this is the Judgment card. And we can see that Gabriel here is, tooting his horn, although looking very blonde and more feminine than actually masculine. But, A.E. Waite and Miss Coleman Deborah Coleman were ahead of their time, apparently. But what's interesting about the card is that this is the imagery of people that are being resurrected, right? So this is part of the end time story, that the dead are resurrected. And it's kind of interesting in a way that when we look at some of these characters and actors that we see in the like I don't think Joe Biden is Joe Biden. I don't think that's him. So when we see somebody like whoever he is, president, I call him President Headroom. Whenever we see somebody like that, to me, it reminds me a lot of this card in that we might be seeing kind of a resurrected figure or facsimile of that person, right? Even though that's not exactly what this card means, but it kind of feels that way in some ways. And I think we can make a case for any number of people who are bad actors and might display some qualities of maybe not even seeming human. Maybe they're wearing some form of a latex mask. I mean, we've seen the pictures with Fauci with the latex flap around his neck. So to me, there's something kind of related to these characters who may not even be around anymore. And if they are around, they may not even be anywhere on some kind of terrestrial platform, right? But this energy is sort of this clarion call of a new age or an age to come. And it got sounded in 2020. And we could see in 2020 where, the world was over. And we're not going back to that world. It's just not going to happen. And if you look at the date 2020, of course, you'll see two 20s inside of 2020. And then you'll have the number 22, which is the number of the Fool, which is, again, a really interesting image and symbol for the time that we're in, because the Fool can mean a number of different things. A fool could be somebody who is actually quite wise, but to the rest of the world might appear to be foolish or naive or believe in things that are either supernatural in nature or things that cannot be proven. So in that case, they'd be considered foolish. But are they really foolish? Or is that just a projection and a judgment that they're receiving from people who believe that they're far smarter and far more informed than the so-called fool? Or are the fools the people that I'm talking about, the ones who are supposedly informed and make all the right decisions based on what authority and what the people who are in control, the people who can determine what real science is, that they're going to trust those people. They're going to abdicate their will. They're going to sign off on their version of reality and do everything that they are required by those people to do. And are they the ones that are foolish? Who's the fool? Because you're in one camp or the other now, right? You're in one camp or the other. So again, that was all initiated in 2022. I'm sorry, 2020 with the two twos. So you have the 22, and then you have the two 20s, which is like judgment times two. And here we are, we're still in that wave. We haven't gotten out of that wave. And what's also quite interesting is, again, numerologically, we are in the time. By the way, oh, look who's here. He's such a freak. What are you going to do? You're not going to make it up here. You're going to, what's going to happen? You're going to try to come up here and you're going to knock shit over like you did last time. And you know what? You're going to be a scaredy cat, and I'm going to be pissed off at you. Hold on. So Jasper, by the way, has developed some kind of phobia of walking on the floor here. Hold on. Come on, you want to say hi to your friends? Come on. Let's go. There it is. Whoa, hey. The astrological cat. It's right there. There he is. You want to say hi? You have anything you want to say to people? Hmm? You want to say to people? I don't want you raising any hell here. You have to figure out where you're going to be able to sit. You can sit right there if you want. Or you can come up here. What are you going to do? Just don't knock anything over. Anyway, so we're in a 5-year now, and 2 + 2 + 1 is 5, right? So this is the Hierophant. This is the year of the Hierophant, and the Hierophant has a lot to do with Orthodox spiritual instruction. Now, back in the day, it was like, if you look on the major arcana, there's nobody playing a fucking doctor in the 22 cards that make up the main. There's no doctor there. The only doctor really might be the hermit, who might be able to hook you up with some herbs. I almost said herbs, and maybe the Hierophant. Maybe the Hierophant's had a little bit of medical training, right? The high priest, and maybe the high priestess might be able to help you out a little bit. But that's it, man. There's no doctor in the 22 major arcana. There's no doctor. There's no banker. They're very clear archetypal forms. But the Hierophant represents a certain type of authority. And that authority, we've seen that played out in Tony Fauci. And if you look at sort of the expression, so the Hierophant is the 5th card in the deck. So the card that would be associated with the Hierophant inside the major arcana would be the 14th card in the deck, which is Temperance, which is this card that represents a tempered outlook on life, tempering one's emotions, not being biased, not being judgmental. There's a lot of other things that go along with temperance. There's some healing factors that go along with temperance, some healing pieces. There's also some alchemical and artistic and creative synthesis that goes along with that card. But that represents sort of the higher octave of the Hierophant, which is not judgmental. Okay, it's not like it's my way or the fucking highway. We've got the knowledge and you don't have the knowledge. The 14th card in the deck. Oh, sorry, let me see that. I have to make sure that I get the right. I gotta look at Temperance here. It's the moon. La lune. Let me bring Temperance up. It's the world. Jasper, what do you think of Temperance? What do you think of it? There's the star. I love the star card. The star card's like a Tartarian giant. Magician. Here it is, right here. That's death. It's right here. The sun. Jesus, I could have done this on Google already. I apologize. Here's the Hierophant. Let's just look at him for a second. Let's look at the Hierophant. So the Hierophant also shows up in another card in the major arcana, which I'll show you. So here's the Hierophant, and what he's doing is he's offering like spiritual, religious instruction. That's his thing. That's his thing. And not always a warm and fuzzy guy, right? So you have the keys of understanding, right? That's what that symbol means. The keys of understanding. And there he is dispensing his holy wisdom. Let me just find that other card. Now, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? There we go. Yeah, it's the 14th card, and it's temperance. Let me show it to you. Right here. Right there. So that's the 14th card. The idea here is that at a higher octave, the view would be temperate, right? The approach would be temperate. It wouldn't be judgmental. It wouldn't be, you know, my way or the fucking highway. It wouldn't be, hey, I'm the science, trust me. You know who said that too? Obama said that. He didn't say the science part. They asked him about hope and change. Well, he says, I am the change. Just like Fauci said, well, I am science, right? But that's not what this card is representative of. This card is representative of something very, very different. So one of the things here in 2021, when we deal with this 5 energy, here being 14, of course, 1 plus 4 is 5, is to also be temperate in a lot of ways with how we deal with reality. It doesn't mean that we're going to be pushovers, right? Doesn't mean we're going to be pushovers. We have to temper what we take in at times. And people, I think, are really on the edge, and understandably so. But if they're not going to be temperate in their view, right, if they're not going to do that, then in some ways we need to take that on for ourselves so we don't let these people blow us off course. And then there's this really interesting image of, you know, mixing things together, which is, you know, in my estimation, kind of very alchemical here. And this idea of synthesizing one thing into another, which, you know, I feel like is something that, you know, we would normally do in a situation where if you're involved in something like holistic medicine or holistic health or anything like that, you would do that. You would just find out what works, right? You definitely find. The other thing I really like about this card is that there's some, you know, there's some hope in this card, but I would say not kind of false hope, but hope that is born out of something. Like the card that precedes this one is the death card. Okay, so temperance follows death, which is pretty interesting kind of transition state. Now he's up here. And what I love about this card is like the lilies of the field, and you know, they're not going to sweat how they're going to grow, right? There's something very organic and kind of whole with and contained, right? You look at those 2 chalices and none of the water is coming out. It's all contained. And there tends to be this idea here where there's some kind of gnosis that's been taking place. So this person, this angel, is coming to some level of understanding. And there's also a very interesting connection between having one foot on terra firma, right? And then the other foot in the water, which is the realm of the spirit. So in, you know, to have one foot in this world and another in another world, right? To be in this world, but not of it. And here from an astrological standpoint, we're dealing with Aquarius Pisces, right? We're dealing with Aquarius Pisces. And especially with Pisces, when we get into the more esoteric meaning of that kind of sentiment, to be in this world, but not of it, this is exactly what this card is communicating. So when you look at the Gregorian calendrical time that we're in, and it chops itself down to the number 5, right? And we see this as being the 14th card, which is the outgrowth of the Hierophant, also the number 5. This is a card that's a really interesting card to think about and kind of meditate on in terms of how we deal with the Faucis in our world, right? Or, you know, and even sort of the Fauci inside of, what are you doing, man? You're blowing my illusion, dude. You should see him. He's going to do something. I know he's going to do something. Okay, how much closer can you get into the screen? I think that's what he wants to do. I think he wants to get into the fucking screen. We had company over last night, and all he did was just soak up attention and food. Now he's backward. What's also really funny is that most of the time he won't even come in here because he's kind of freaked out about the floor. We've had a few scorpions here. I think the scorpion thing might have gotten his attention. But when I came here, he decided, well, I want to be a part of this. So Jasper faced his fears to be a part of this show tonight. That's a true professional right there. That's a true professional right there. It doesn't get more pro than that. Anyway, the Fauci's in our own life too, right? I mean, that's kind of this, because if you come out of a phase like judgment, and then you're dealing with this 5 energy, there's a really strong chance that you'll look back on your life and your experiences and think, man, I really fucked up. How did I get here? What can I, boy, I'm not prepared. I'm just not prepared for what's happening right now. Well, that's not really, I mean, yes and no. Yes and no. Because I'll tell you, there are people that are very prepared and they think they're very prepared, but you never know what's going to happen. I mean, obviously you want the odds in your favor, but you don't know what's going to happen. And what are you preparing for anyway? See, this is the big thing that I think people have to ask themselves this question. And it gets into, again, more astrology and kind of more what we're going to talk about tonight. What are you preparing for? What kind of world are you thinking about? Okay, well, if I get my preps together and I do all this and all that, and I might be able to wait these guys out and hopefully not take too much of a big dent. I mean, that could be true, but what are you preparing for? What's going to be the life magnet that's going to draw you from the other side of this event that we're in now? What is that thing? For some people, it's their kids and the prospect of keeping their kids safe and having their kids be able to procreate. Some people don't have kids. Some people have kids that they're not on the same page. Some people have lost their kids. So, what is it, right? What is it? What is that thing? Is it that we're all just terrified of death and that we want to live at any cost? And I think there's some truth to that. But I think it's bigger than that. And I think we need something bigger. We need something that is inspirational, that is creative, that gives us a sense that if we can endure the time that we're in, and if we can endure it with goodwill and good cheer and positivity and determination, that there is something for us on the other side. And that something is part of what happened this weekend, where all over the world, millions of people took to the streets and shouted out against tyranny. It's never happened before on a global scale like this. Never. And what's really funny too, is that, of course, the United States mainstream media won't cover it because they're all controlled by the intelligence agencies. But they will fucking cover a protest in New York by Antifa. And of course, that's staged, right? That's staged to offset what's going on in a much bigger way, much bigger way. And we're still into that Gemini true node phase as well. We're going to be out of it by January of next year, but we're really coming down into like first decan Gemini. We're in first decan Gemini stuff right now. So it's going to get very, very Gemini. like super Gemini. So as we have these moments of global awakening and the Aquarian masses take to the streets, you're going to have another group or these other events theoretically try to offset that. And that's exactly what happened this weekend. And of course, they were trying to give us the Olympics, which is another Aquarian event, but it was really pale in comparison to the triumph of the human spirit. Huge crowds, massive crowds. And nobody watched the fucking Olympics opening ceremony, and it's just weird. The whole thing is just weird. You would think that they would try to create a real vivid and vibrant kind of global situation or global pageant, but to really, really sell where things are headed for them. It was horrific. It was horrible. In fact, they even had protests. They had protests outside of Japan, outside of the Olympics, because fucking Japan doesn't want to get live. And by the way, that's not a country that protests all that much. Think about that. Think about that. That's a country that has a lot of social condition and social order, and they don't really do that, but they did this weekend. Okay, what are you going to do now? You coming down here now? You were nice and peaceful over there. You had a nice peaceful place. You look like the Sphinx over there. But now you're back down. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. You just have to let me do my show. All right. All right. So you would think that the Olympics would try harder. Like, you're trying to fucking reset the planet, okay? This is a planetary event. Come up with something better. Come up with something better. It's weird. There's nobody there. They fucking cardboard people. They're sleeping on cardboard boxes inside of their Olympic quarters. Why are they sleeping on cardboard boxes? Well, because they want to discourage people from having sex. Because that's what happens when the Olympics happens. You get a bunch of young people that are horny, and they always brag about how many condoms they have to supply because they're shagging each other like jackrabbits. Oh, but now we want cardboard beds. When do you think a cardboard fucking bed ever kept somebody from, getting their rocks off? News to the universe, you don't need a cardboard bed, okay? But that's weird, right? Why they're making a big deal out of a fucking cardboard bed? Well, guess what? Maybe in the future you will have a cardboard bed and you'll like it. Oh, you'll get used to it. You'll like it. Be the best night's sleep you could have off of asphalt. The whole thing is just bizarre. You would think they would try to sell it better. Like, yeah, man, I'm down with that. I'm down with this message. I'm down with this reset jive. But they just don't do a very good job of it. And maybe that's intentional. Maybe if they did a better job of it, people wouldn't be waking up. Maybe we can thank them for that too. Isn't that right? By the way, they have this refugee team now. I think it's kind of odd. And they made a big deal out of the fact that one of the refugees, so they've had these refugee athletes, very global thing. The UN thought about it. And I think it started in Brazil in 2016. I didn't follow those Olympics. Like, I was done. I was done by 2016. I didn't watch that shit. But apparently they had this refugee team. So if you're a refugee like Syria or I don't know, Somalia or something like that, I guess you get to be a part of a team and you get to go train and take on other teams, right? It's a kind of a new thing. The refugee team. I made a big deal that one of the refugee people, which I think it's just basically people have been displaced and they're living in another country now. It's like, why can't they just compete for the country that they're living in? I don't quite get that. But maybe it's because they wouldn't be able to qualify, so they can qualify for the refugee team, which is supposedly really good for this idea that we're all like one family, the global thing. So they made a big deal out of this woman who, beat somebody up in the Taekwondo match, like a Japanese. First win for a refugee. athlete. They're trying, but it's not really sticking. It doesn't have any traction. And that's the problem with this idea of the fake Aquarian age. It will be a pale, pale copy of what is really taking place. And a lot of people, when we think of like the Aquarian age, and I'm going to get into, by the way, I'm going to get into the chart for the full moon, which I really feel like is that kind of initiatory phase. You know, all systems go. I mean, that's what was happening this weekend. But a lot of times when people think of the Aquarian age, they think of, oh man, it's just going to be so great. And, you know, we're going to have superpowers and interstellar space travel. And we're going to talk to plants, and cats can travel into TV screens and become characters. And this is really what the Aquarian age is going to be all about. And, you know, we'll have telepathic communication with one another. And, you know, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe somewhere down the line, but we are in the nascent stages of something being born, and it's happening. And I feel like it's important to take note of that, because we wind up taking in so much toxicity and so much distraction and so much atomization, and how our friends and families and communities have been split apart and split asunder, that it's really hard to focus and recognize something that's actually positive, right? It's really hard to do that, but something positive is happening. This is really important for everybody to understand, and that you're in it right now. This whole thing has been activated, and there's no going back, right? Because these people, they're not going to turn the clock back. They're going to say, okay, we're done now. We're good. Thanks for being a part of the trial, and thanks for helping to flatten the curve. We're going back. That's not happening. That is not going to happen. And unfortunately, we're headed to a place now where there's going to be more people that are going to be ill. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. And I read something. It was a statistic from a hospital, I think in the UK, where I think 26 people were there in the hospital and suffering from COVID. 25 got the carjack. Okay, 25. So 25 out of 26. Do the math on that. It's summertime, right? You would think that with all the UV light out there, natural vitamin D, people aren't being locked into their homes. You have air circulation, that the health would naturally regenerate and get better. Based on that little snippet, it's not, and that's a sign of things to come. So we are headed into a very tricky and challenging territory, and we're just seeing and experiencing the awakening of the slumbering masses, where people are having the same idea, the same intention, in the same spirit simultaneously. And for the most part, it's organic. It's in response to what's happening out there in the world. I was thinking in human design, they've got 4/5 types, depending upon who you talk to about human design. Like if the generator and the manifesting generator are two different actual types. Some people don't think so. Some people do. I guess if you're a manifesting generator, you want to be a little special. So yeah, man, we're our own thing. We got a little more. We got a little more than your typical generator. We're manifesting generators. We're generators with turbos. So the world is comprised mostly of generators based on, whatever statistics that or who came up with. What do generators have to do? They have to respond, right? That is their strategy. So I would assume that a lot of these people that have taken to the streets have responded to what's happening, right? That is the strategy for the generator and the manifesting generator. Well, listen, you're about 67% of the population, whatever it is. It's time to fucking respond, okay? Get on your response, motor scooter and get out there. Respond to what's happening in the world. There's a lot of you. A lot of you. So respond accordingly. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think we're seeing the response to what's taking place. Okay, there's my little monologue. Let's check in with you. Let's see how you guys are doing. Let's see what we got here. Do we have any chat? Do we have chat? Oh, I got one thumbs down. You didn't even fucking listen to what I have to say, and you already gave me a thumbs down. Fuck you. How's that for an Aquarian response? Fuck you. I'm just kidding. All right, here we go. My cat loves her cardboard bed. You'll have a cardboard bed and you'll love it. That's right. I like Publix. Hey, Ani, nice to see you. Michael, what's going on, brother? Wendy Eater, here's Sony. Zero Hedge. Charles Leman, Publix, Gulf Shores, Alabama, cleanest store I've ever been. Almost as good as Wegmans. I like Wegmans. Storming Borders is a new Olympic event. I love it. Crimmies. Funny. By the way, Steve, I might have a CD for you. Let's see, Andre Garland. I've only seen 1.5 minute clip of the drone sphere. Susie Gemini, dude, maybe the cardboard with its nanoparticles activates the carjack. Ooh, never know. Let's see what else. Dave Sullivan, what's going on? Cardboard bed, tiny home, and a big phone. You can use your big screen TV. You'll have nothing and love it. Absolutely. Olympic Games viewership lowest in 30 years. Yep, I saw that. Mountain Valley water needs to, yes. Mountain Valley. It's all really funny in a black humor way. It kind of is, actually. And you guys are loving your Gulf Shores Walmart, getting some love here. VV sounds like the fight scene from the movie Coffee Town. What's going on, Steve? No one you know. I quit watching Olympics years ago, too. They have jumped the shark with all the weird ceremonies and strange rules. I agree. You know, some of the backstories of the Olympics used to be interesting. Like, I kind of liked the backstory thing a long time ago when they were interesting. Not all backstories are interesting. Let's face it. They're just not all that interesting. Sometimes they are. And when they are, man, they're really great. Other times, not so much. Now it's like a lot of backstory, a lot of filler, tons of filler. Okay. Hey, Ursilia, what's going on? Out of the energies is full moon. Super depressing. I'm assuming it's a detox. Maybe, could be. I had a good time. We had a real Aquarian event here. We had an Aquarian event. I'm not going to tell you what we did. Some people might take offense to it, but those that were here know what we did. It was a lot of fun. Maybe I'll show you tomorrow. Let's see. April Himmel, Rouse's, great grocery store. Let's see. $45,000 is not much for a permanent place. However, it needs to be reworked into a small home. $10,000 down gets you approved. Joe Mama's here. What's going on, Joe? Yeah, Aquarian Age has been overhyped my entire life. Yeah, the Aquarian Age is really, I believe in the Aquarian Age, okay? I believe in it. And it hasn't just been kind of one thing. You know, I think that in 1963, when Kennedy, got snuffed or whatever happened to Kennedy, where we had all those planets in Aquarius, and that was in February of 1963. And that's really sort of this ignition phase for the 60s and the counterculture and psychedelic music and psychedelic drugs and the great festivals, which were Aquarian events. And it feels like that, you know, whether that was an MK Ultra kind of stage global moment, I think there was something to that time. You had the really interesting Pluto-Uranus conjunction. Take it out of the sign of Virgo. Just take it out of Virgo, and you deal with Uranus as the ruler of Aquarius, and Pluto, which is this planet connected to death and transformation, that it would be very kind of emblematic of an ignition point for the Aquarian age, just by using Uranus as kind of an augur, right? The ruler of Aquarius. And Pluto would come in and we would be transformed, you know, during that time. And a lot of really Aquarian kind of ideas came into play. Yoga and macrobiotic diets. I mean, for better or worse, some of these things are good, and some of these things have been proven over time that maybe they're good to do for a while. Like a macrobiotic diet's probably good for a while. You want to live with it for the rest of your life? Probably not. But there were some interesting things that came out of that time, and a lot of them were very Aquarian ideas that have lived on and become incorporated into our daily life. So, you know, that was kind of one chapter in one phase, and there have been other kind of chapters and phases that have happened. One could make a case, and I've read this before, by the way, that the timeline got hijacked during that time. I actually wrote about it. The timeline got hijacked during that time with Kennedy. There's a timeline hijack, and that supposedly there was somebody who was supposed to follow Kennedy, who was going to be a Republican, who would wind up actually bringing people together. And this is from a channeled work I read one time. And they had actually gone back in time and taken that guy out so that he would never become president. And I don't think that, for a lot of you, that's not too far-fetched. It's really not too far-fetched. And what's also really interesting along those lines is how quickly the world changed. It was almost like, okay, we got one universe, and now we're in another universe. You know, is what we're witnessing and seeing not just part of this mutation of the social order, or how do I say this, hacking of the social order, but maybe something else at a deeper level is going on. You know, maybe there are key individuals who were supposed to be at certain places at certain times, and they were just not there, right, for whatever reason, to protect the masses or whistleblow on you know, the Hierophant, whatever, right? I mean, there are things that we just don't really know at a very innate level. That said, look how quickly everything changed. I mean, overnight. It's like we're living in a different fucking universe now. Different, rapid. So this idea that a timeline has been switched, I could totally live with that idea. But now what's happening is that maybe this other timeline is trying to reassert itself. That it's not, that they can't really contain it. And maybe they can just alter it a little bit at a time. But then every time they alter it, the propensity for a different kind of outcome takes place and actually becomes greater. I think that's kind of an interesting thing to think about, especially when we get into, you know, Pluto and Capricorn, because Capricorn rules time. And clearly when we went to that Saturn-Pluto conjunction, the whole time thing was gone, over. The moon was, yes, I know, right? We looked at that. April Himmel. The moon was interesting how close it was to Saturn and Jupiter. Yes, we were looking at that last night. And my buddy got out his star guide. And so we looked at it from his phone, and we looked at it from, and you can see it, right? They're all in the same constellation. Wow. Cool, it works. Let's see, love stuff, grape leaves. We had a few of those a few weeks ago. Let's see. Who else do we have here? America's quilt. Australia, 142 hospitalizations, all but one got the double dip. How about that? EC 2189, Kaku, what's going on? Good to see you. Sir Baron von Count, sports are dead. 100%. David says, the weirder it is now, the more normal it will be. Yes. I would agree with him. Timeless, which maybe Judas did not kiss Jesus. A kiss can change everything. That's true. Cryptic Thinker, good to see you. JJ Rain de Blanc is here. Sorry, Rob, not understanding life allowed heart rate. Is Robert drinking? No, I'm not. No, I don't drink. I seem slightly intoxicated. It's the Aquarian Age. Drinking. That's what I'm drinking. All right, solidification. Let's look at that full moon. Let's look at the astrology of that full moon. All right, here we go. Dear blessed and holy Mother, Father God, of the great central sun within the universal light, which is the light of Yeshua, Sananda, Emmanuel, and all the great avatars that have walked upon the face of this domain. We ask that only the highest and best information, wisdom, and truth come through this channel at this time. And in so doing, we affirm and decree the qualities of clarity and comprehension, coherence, patience, courage, commitment, character, humor, and above all, love. We ask that any karmic residue be cleansed, purified, clarified, and removed from this stream at this time. All right. Now, I'm having a lighthearted moment, and I'm being accused of drinking. You know, I used to drink when I went to high school. When I was a freshman in high school, I used to get fucking hammered. We had too much time on our hands. We had this stupid thing called double session because our school was too big. We had too many kids. So as freshmen, we went to school at like, I don't know, 11:45 or 12 or something like that. And we got out, I think, at 5:45. It was, so we had all this time in our hands in the morning. You don't do that to kids, right? Your parents are gone. You don't do that to kids. And we had a few intoxicated mornings, let's put it that way. I'm not proud of that, by the way. But it's just how it was, right? That was life in the 70s. All right. Let's see. What is the sound of an Aquarian laugh? Dolphins. You ever heard a dolphin laugh? That's an Aquarian laugh. Dolphins. Let's see. Are there trolls coming out from under their bridges? Could be. We got the troll army. Slightly intoxicated. Well, I'm not even slightly intoxicated. Although my mood might be considered gay. I might be in a gay mood. I am wearing a pink velour shirt. I might be in a gay mood tonight, but I wouldn't say I'm intoxicated. He may have refilled his water bottle with Pinot Grigio. All right, let's take a look at this full moon. This Aquarian full moon. I was really interested in the Sabian symbol for 2 Aquarius, because that's really where the moon, this full moon is. It's 2 Aquarius. So this is what was happening. And we're going to get right into the ground zero Paris. So this is what was going on in Paris. And you know, we're really looking at that tide orb. We got the sun at 1 and the moon at 1 right there. And I suppose we could bring it back to 0, but it's a real tide orb. It's 5 a.m. You can probably still see the moon, more than likely. The sun has risen though, because you can see it over the horizon. Slightly risen. Anyway, this is the chart from yesterday. And The interesting thing about the sun in Leo, because we can't like decouple the sun from the moon in this conversation. They're dealing with the masculine and the feminine, dealing with this circuitry, this cosmic circuitry. And the sun in Leo has a lot of heart, man. A lot of heart, a lot of courage, a lot of pride, right? A lot of pride. And I think Leo really captures, in a lot of ways, the spirit of humanity in all of its warts and glory. You know, we have great athletes and great actors who are Leos, and it comes with the territory, right? It comes with being, you know, kind of bold and larger than life, and you know, all the world's a stage. And then you get the, you know, kind of the ego stuff that goes along with it, and you know, sometimes Leo can be really tyrannical. I mean, let's not forget that. You know, if they're not getting their needs met, and they don't feel appreciated and loved, I've seen Leos become just downright tyrannical. So there is that side to it too. But I feel like it really captures sort of the best and worst of who we are. You know, it's kind of like the enlightened child, or the, you know, who's got a lot of enthusiasm and wonder and joie de vivre and a lust for life, and it is really, you know, open to experience, which is Leo can be. And the shadow side of that is when the child doesn't get what it wants or what it needs, and then it can become an enfant terrible. So, but I do feel like, in a lot of ways, it really encapsulates sort of the potential of the grandiosity of the human spirit in all of its warts and glory. Because once we get out of Leo, we move it to Virgo, which is a way more subdued sign. You know, it's way more subdued. Now, Venus has moved ahead a little bit here. So they're no longer in the same sign now. We have Venus in Virgo, and Mars was at 26 Leo as of yesterday. It's probably, where is it? It's probably still 26 today. So now we've kind of moved, but they're going to still be together, right? Because by the end of the year, well, at the beginning of next year, we're going to have a major conjunction with Venus, Mars, and Pluto. The first 2 weeks of 2022, I think, are going to be game changers. Those first 2 weeks are going to be heavy fucking duty. And I'm not sure it's going to be all warm and fuzzy either. I don't think it's going to be all warm and fuzzy. I think it's going to be kind of heavy, actually. But that's then. This is now. So we have Venus here at to Virgo, but they're just very different signs, right? Virgo's going to be more subdued in some ways, more about, you know, serving and helping, and, you know, being kind of, you know, analytical, solving problems. Not a bad thing, but it doesn't really represent sort of the fullness of our humanity, right? Because Leo is also an emotional sign. It could be, you know, stormy and tempest-like. Virgo, not so much. Virgo, they're dialing down the emotion, dialing up the head. But then we get to Libra, and now it's all about kind of the other. You know, it's not it doesn't. I mean, maybe Libra holds the, you know, the keys to, you know, our humanity because of how we treat one another in relationship. And that's fine and well and good, but to me, it doesn't really define like this idea of who we are. And Leo, in my estimation, does. The other sign that I think kind of does in some ways, is Aries. But Leo is better for this definition, because Leo is conscious of itself. And Leo is conscious of itself because of how it wants to be received. Aries is not conscious of itself in that way. It doesn't matter. Some Aries will care, but not all. Not all Aries will care. That's not what they're here to do. They're not here to care. They're here to get you to think about what you're doing with your energy and your will. Right? That's what they do. And they're here to blaze trails, and that's how it is. Leo's different. Leo has the same kind of fiery intent, but is conscious of itself. And then we can get into some of the, the outer signs like Scorpio and Sag, but now you're moving into the transpersonal realm. Now you're moving into the meta script of humanity. And Leo's where it's at. Like, I think it typifies us in a lot of ways. The idea of love and romance, all very much a part of Leo. The things that we love to do, music, theater, painting, these are all very kind of Leonine qualities. And again, they typify the human spirit. We go on to Virgo, we're not really considering those things that much. We're more concerned about, getting the siding up on the house before it gets too cold, right? Things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Those are all very important aspects. But Leo is it, in my estimation. So when we go back and we look at a day like yesterday, when it's one Leo and you've got these masses who are just taken to the streets, it's the spirit of Leo. It's the spirit of humanity. They're opening up their chests and their hearts. Like, look, we got to do something here. We're not going to stand up for this. And we have the moon on the other side in Aquarius, which is illuminating, right? It's illuminating the moment. And it's really interesting. It's super, super interesting. Are you done now? You done? I really like the moon, Mercury Neptune square that was going on yesterday as well, which is, again, if you look at this idea of the global mind, that people were having similar thoughts, similar actions, similar aspirations, all simultaneously. And the channel pretty open, right? And even today and tomorrow, Mercury will be at 23 Cancer tomorrow when you start your week. It's really intuitive energy, very, very intuitive energy. And, when we have Pallas here, excuse me, conjunct Neptune in Pisces, it's like super psychic, super, super psychic. So this is a very interesting time, to dream, to try to get into some kind of I don't know, I was going to say delta state. You don't want to go to the delta state. To get into a meditative state, right? To get into a state where you're dropping down into a more relaxed state of consciousness. This is a really interesting time. And also, if you're into like researching and trying to figure out what the fuck is going on in the world, you could have some interesting breakthroughs. You can stumble across some things and have some insights that are going to be, kind of coming out of the blue, right? Very interesting. Mercury is going to eventually catch up to Pallas. So this period we're in now, like this coming week, is a very, very intuitive week. Highly intuitive, highly psychic, highly impressionable. So you want to pay attention. You definitely want to pay attention. You want to pay attention to your dreams. You want to pay attention to your reveries, whatever, synchronicities to some degree. The Neptune Mercury trine is just slippy. When I mean slippy, it means like you can kind of slip between worlds. And maybe that's what you're kind of picking up on, the intoxicating part. Maybe I'm just kind of connecting into that Mercury Neptune trine. I'm channeling my old days when I used to drink before I did this show. But I like it. I like the aspect. And that aspect was in play yesterday. And at 21 Cancer, they're in that third decan. It's a Piscean decan of Cancer. So it's connecting people up to the global mind that feels. So here we have the moon over here at 140. Because we could play around a little bit. We could go 0, 1. Let's just go 1. And it's like 1 degree, 40 minutes. So I wanted to show you the Sabian symbol for the moon, that degree. It's kind of interesting. Where are we? So we're going to call this 2 Aquarius because it's at 1:40, 1 degree 40 minutes. An unexpected thunderstorm. The need to develop inner security, which will enable us to meet unexpected crises. This is a really interesting Sabian symbol, particularly because some of the stuff that I was reading over the weekend, like apparently gas prices are supposed to go through the roof starting tomorrow. And of course, there's that Roy Potter video that's gone viral where they say that the Army brass has been telling their people to get ready to make sure they have enough rations and gas and all this other stuff, right? I'm not sure how I feel about Roy Potter. But that video has gone viral. A couple of people sent it to me. It's all over Twitter. So, you know, that's kind of in the wind, right? These things are kind of in the wind. People are, you know, sensing that the supply chain is really fragile. We could be dealing with things like blackouts and power surges, the grid. I mean, stuff is just out there, right? It's out in the news sphere. So there is that, right? An interesting connection can be made between the symbols for Taurus 1 and 2, a clear mountain stream and an electrical storm. And those for Aquarius 1 and 2, 270 degrees apart, a waning square. Yeah, he's some ways talking about, this is Roger, by the way, some ways he's talking about the Uranus-Saturn square as well. In terms of a cycle of relationships, such as the lunation cycle. In the first case, we deal with energies or activities that can be related to the natural development of the individual. But here we are primarily concerned with social, collective processes and the function of the individual within them. The symbol itself, an unexpected thunderstorm, could be given a very positive meaning in an arid environment, but the emphasis on unexpected thunderstorm, or unexpected, tends to accent the sudden and dangerous character of the event. Such a thunderstorm in a region of dry hills can cause a devastating flood. At any rate, it refers to an event for which one is not prepared, a menace to men's works. Seen as a second stage symbol, thus in contrast to the preceding one, this scene stresses the fact that nature may reduce to impermanence the seemingly most permanent endeavors and constructive activities of men. Under a downpour of rain, adobe brick can turn to mud. All human institutions and their achievements can be washed away even in their day of great glory. Hello, Tartaria. Dust you were, dust you must become. This is nature's challenge. Okay, so essentially what Rudyard is talking about is he's talking about this potential for a natural disaster or something shocking that alters the environment that is unexpected. I feel like what happened yesterday as it relates to what was going on in Paris and Milan and London and Ontario and Australia, even Japan, maybe some places I've left out. I feel like that was the thunderstorm. I feel like that was the thunderstorm. I feel like that was this rising up of this electrical field that has been building, right? It's been building. And people are holding a lot of charge because of what's gone on. And the sacrifices a lot of people have had to make, or they made them thinking that the sacrifices would have been worthwhile, and now they're finding out that, man, I thought this was only supposed to be 2 weeks, a month. Now we're into donuts and hand jobs for vaccines. So that's a problem. So there's a charge that's been building, and I think yesterday we saw some of that discharge. Let's see if I can find some of the pictures. I've been thinking I gotta find some pictures of what happened yesterday. Let's see if we can look at some of the Paris stuff. They say 161,000. I don't think so. I don't think so. That is a conservative number. So look at some of these pictures. Here we go. Look at this. That's how many people are here. I mean, this is just one little slice of that moment. You know that there were throngs of people on the side streets. Like, look at this. Look at this. You know, what's interesting is that 1968, Chiron was in Aries, like it is now. And that's when Paris was having these, you know, crazy fucking socialist revolutions. I think de Gaulle was the president then. De Gaulle was an interesting character, by the way. Anyway. So they're doing it again. Chiron and Aries, and here are the French once again hitting the streets, but for a different cause, right? Look at that. That's the charge, the electrical charge that is being discharged. Let's see if we can find some video. Let's see some video on this. That'd be cool. Come on. Cops charge a crowds protesting police brutality. Let's see what we get here. Charlie Hebdo. Whatever. They are not giving up a lot of video. What is this? Hold on. So that picture I showed you was a picture from, I don't know, is it 20? They always go to the same place. Let me go back here. Because it looked like it was a picture from 2015. Apparently it's not. They just go to the same place. Come on. There we go. Let's see. Let's see if I can find this right here. French police use tear gas on anti-vaccine. This is from, I think it's from Sputnik. They may have some video here. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. The stream seems to be pretty good. I'm on a wireless router, but navigating to different websites takes a little bit longer down here. Yeah, there's no video there. Tunisian president ousts government. That is easy. You're out. Let me see if I can find another one. So it says anti-vaccine pass protest turns violent. Over 100 arrested as Paris rally against security bill. That's not even the right one. Boy, they are really skinny on this coverage. Let me tell you. Oh, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. This is what we want. Right here. Okay. So this is some video action. Let's get some sound on here. That's it. There's a little snippet, but it's happening. It's on. Oh, this is good. Let me show you this one. This is really good. This is from, same thing. It's from Sydney. Hats off, Sydney. Check this out. This is what the Aquarian Age looks like right here. This is it. This is the birth.
You should have not!
What a fucking man. A little chippy there. There you go. You know, in Italy, in Italy, the police walked with the protesters. They walked with the protesters. Fantastic. If you're somebody who is one of these, you know, little petty tyrants, and you start to see stuff like that, you're thinking, okay, when are the robot cops coming? When do the robot cops get here? Because we're losing the police. If they lose the police force, if they lose that line, what are they going to do? Call in the army at that point? What if the army does the same thing? They're kind of fucked, okay? I don't know if they're ready to break out RoboCop yet, but I don't think they'd be opposed to breaking out, you know, more hardcore technology to deal with the people, but then they'd have to have somebody to like work it, right? I mean, maybe there's enough, you know, psychopaths in badges to go around the world and do stuff like that, but I don't think so. You know, and if they automate things too much, it can be screwed up. Things can be hacked, and it's just, you know, you can get humans, you know, overturning something like a swarm of locusts. So I think that it's problematic, right? So you go back and you look at the Sun Moon opposition, and we look at the downside of Leo. You know, the downside of Leo is this old school model of the, you know, the king or the duke or the baron. It's very feudalistic. And, you know, those people or those titles are now occupied by people like Macron and Boris Johnson, even though they may or may not belong to any kind of bloodline. Who knows? But they occupy those positions now. So in essence, they're sort of the version of Leo, you know, in that situation. So they're occupying the sun position, and then the masses are occupying the lunar position with the moon in Aquarius. They are the storm, right? They are the storm. What did Trump talk about? No, don't worry, there's a storm coming. Well, maybe the storm is here, and maybe it has nothing to do with Trump. Maybe it has nothing to do with Trump. But in that equation, the masses, which are very lunar, by the way, when you think of mobs, right? When you think of crowds, quite often they're not rational. They're not. They're just going on nerve and instinct and this collective emotion that they're all sharing. It's very lunar. So you flip the script around, and now you've got these petty tyrants in the solar position, and the masses are in the lunar position. You can flip it again, and the masses can be the epitome of the human spirit in the Leo position, and then the lunar position could be occupied by this kind of, how do I say it? This sort of techno-fascist state, which is kind of difficult to reach or get to, which is very much like the moon in a lot of ways. Like you can't wrap your hands around Klaus Schwab's neck, right? I mean, so in a lot of ways, it's very removed from the rest of us. So in that regard, again, it's sort of this, solar lunar opposition. So you can spin this, right? You can spin this full moon experience in Aquarius Leo, and there's energy even in that spinning. Even in the spin, there's energy there. It's an important time. It's a very important time, and you're here and you're a part of it. And no matter what happens, it is going to be historical in ways that theoretically we've never seen, based on the history that we know. Based on the history that we know. And you chose to be here. We chose to be here. Some people are like, well, I didn't fucking choose to be here. Get me out of here. And I understand that completely. All right. Let's check out the chart at the moment. Let's see if we can find something in here that might be relevant. Do we have everything? Yeah, I do. Let's go home here. It's not going to be a whole lot different than what we just saw. In fact, the moon is getting ready to transit out of Aquarius. It's at 29 Aquarius. There we go. Let me change this. Okay. Let's go home. Here we go. Harriet Tubman, magical, mercurial figure. All right. There it is, chart of the moment right there. So you can see the moon, 29, Aquarius. It's in conjunction right now with Jupiter. Well, we saw it last night. It's even closer now. That's an interesting energy. Moon and Jupiter conjunction in Pisces. Jupiter's retrograde. It's a very interesting energy. It's kind of deep, right? It's kind of deep, kind of profound, kind of spiritual. Tonight should be a good night to dream. I'm telling you. If you can, I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna end the show in about half an hour. So that means that a lot of you who are on the East Coast, you can go to bed, take advantage of this dream time, because I think it's gonna be a good night to dream. So, and tomorrow when you wake up, Moon Jupiter conjunction, that's a lot of empathy, it's a lot of compassion. It's got a lot of potential for peacefulness, especially once the moon gets into the later degrees and separates from Mars a little bit. Because we do have this Moon-Mars opposition going on right now, which could also be a little bit restless in terms of going to bed. That could be a little tricky, but it's almost out. It's almost out of Aquarius. So in a couple hours, it'll move into Pisces. It might be easier to get some sleep. There's the sun at 3 Leo. And let's see, what do we have here? There's that Mercury, Neptune. I mean, we covered a lot of this already in a lot of ways. Venus is moving into a nice little trine with Uranus. That's interesting, especially in Virgo. That's an interesting trine. That's creative. That's like creative in terms of relationship. Because Venus and Virgo could be kind of judgmental, but a trine to Uranus changes that, right? It changes sort of the relational ability. It's like, man, I'll take a chance. Take a chance. I'm open. I'm open to something different, right? It's interesting. It's a nice trine. And, you know, here's what I think. With that Venus-Uranus trine, you could also get into like criticism of something, but you could come at it from a very different angle so that it wouldn't come off as being pedantic, or it wouldn't come off as being trite. And Venus has a ways to go in this. It's just starting now to move into trine. So we have what, 10 degrees. So that's about 20 days of this Venus. You're moving into closer trine with Uranus. So this is interesting. This is a very interesting, if unspectacular, kind of astrological aspect that we can work with. Creative problem solving has kind of a more unique and novel approach here. Solving problems with other people. If you're somebody who does stuff on your own a lot, like a Venus-Uranus trine can be really good. It can help you kind of get out of this idea that you have to do it all yourself. And sometimes it can happen very quickly and very easily. You don't even have to, it can actually come to you, right? If you are in a preparation mode, a Venus-Uranus trine could be quite good, meaning that you would look around and understand what you need, and you would figure out a way to get it. So, and what's your relationship with technology? What is your we're in Leo season. This is a good time, obviously, to invest in some solar. It's Leo season. Get some solar panels. You know, the ability to kind of hook them up and figure it out. And this is astrology, like street level astrology. And then we get into like Saturn and Aquarius, which is the hardware. So if you wanted to get into the solar thing, this would be a good time to do it, and especially with the Venus-Uranus trine. Be able to figure stuff out and get some help for it if you need to do that. So at a prep level, I like that a lot. I like that trine a lot. Mars is going to be moving out of this orb here. Moon will be into Pisces on Monday and Tuesday. It'll speed ahead of Mars. But we will have that Mars-Jupiter opposition. It's kind of there now. But by the end of the week, it'll be there. And Mars-Jupiter oppositions can be, well, I have one. So I kind of know what they're like. And the idea is that with Jupiter, you would get kind of a big idea. And then Mars theoretically would kind of carry it out, right? Big idea here, activation, make it happen over here. That's theoretically how it works. But oppositions, in fact, it's the only opposition I have in my chart. So, but sometimes you could be more on the Mars side. Sometimes you could be more on the Jupiter side, which means, hey, man, I'll take care of that tomorrow. And more on the Mars side, hey, you got to get it done. So that's the challenge of oppositions, like figuring out how they work together. But if you are inspired over the course of the next few days and you have a big idea, you can cash in on it, right? With a Jupiter, Mars, especially Mars and Virgo, because you'll get shit done. Right? So if you feel inspired, you want to do something, it's a pretty good time. You know, the outer planets are retrograde. Mars certainly is not retrograde. Mercury's clear. You know, you get Saturn retrograde, Jupiter retrograde. And who knows, maybe it was a big idea that you once had at another point in time you want to resurrect. And then here we go. We're just entering right now into the final decan of Gemini with the true node. It's right there. So from here on out, from here until January, we're going to get like a lot of freaking Gemini. It's going to be Gemini'd up. You think you've seen Gemini? You haven't seen any Gemini yet. Just wait till here on out. Very interesting. Interesting stuff. There we go. We got the sun coming in right here and moving into this closer opposition with Saturn, which means it's going to get closer into that T square, which means that things are kind of unstable. And tomorrow, Mars hits Trump's ascendant. This is supposedly when Trump really comes back onto this. And you know what? He has. Trump, whoever's playing Trump, he's come back onto the scene, for better or worse. We should shut the fuck up about the vaccines. But tomorrow, Mars, is it tomorrow? Yeah, I think tomorrow Mars hits his ascendant. So keep your eye on Trump next 48 hours. It'll be interesting to watch from an astrological perspective. What else do we have? Yeah, let's see. Mars is moving out of that inconjunct. Mercury will move out of the Pluto opposition, although that's pretty powerful. Mercury-Pluto oppositions are when you can get obsessed by something and you've got to figure it out. You got to figure out what to do, right? You can do a lot of fear confrontation too with a Mercury-Pluto opposition, especially in Cancer, where people are highly sensitive. All right. I want to talk about Richard Sherman. I'm going to shift tracks here. And I want to talk about Richard Sherman. I know a lot of people like, oh, he's going to fucking talk about sports. Okay. The reason I want to talk about Richard Sherman is because his chart, from a transit perspective, illustrates somebody in the public eye who is going through a severe crisis astrologically than anybody I've ever come across when breaking a chart down. I'm really surprised this guy is even still alive. So what I want to do is I want to just kind of like set the stage here a little bit. Richard Sherman played football. He's not playing now because nobody wants to sign him, not because he lost his fucking mind, but because he is not as good as he used to be. And nobody really wants a player who can't play as well as he used to play and doesn't want to play another position. Like, he might be able to sign with the team if he played safety. He doesn't want to play safety. Also, you're willing to put up with people in your life. Like, have you ever been in a relationship with somebody who's like really fucking hot and you're super attracted to, and the sex is, off the hook? You're probably willing to put up more of that person. I know I have. And I know most people have, right? But when something changes, whatever that thing that changes, maybe it's the fatal, absolutely fatal personality flaw, or some event happens. It's like, I just can't go back there anymore. You're done, right? You're just done. You're not willing to, no matter how good they are, you're just done. Or maybe something, I don't know, maybe something they decided they were going to take up smoking. You don't like that. You know what I mean? You're just over it, right? No matter how good they were, they're maybe not as good as they used to be, and you're not willing to put up with the headache. That's also what's going on with Richard Sherman. People don't want to put up with the headache. He was really good and really brash. I've never seen anybody as brash and arrogant as Richard Sherman ever in the National Football League. I mean brash. Like, this guy crossed lines. He was so brash. I saw this guy, Trent Williams, after a game was over, punch him in the face. And Sherman is, he's kind of a social justice warrior. And he was definitely on that train. He kind of got off it a little bit, but that's the bell he's been ringing. And I never really liked him. I respected the fact that he was a really good player, and he talked shit and he backed it up. I mean, that's, it's, if you can cash the check that you write, more power to you. And he did. I didn't have to like him. He didn't need me to like him. I just didn't like him, but I respected him. But he lost his mind. And I'm going to play the 911 recording of this guy, Richard Sherman. If you haven't heard it already, I'm going to play it again. And then I'm going to look at his chart. I'm going to show you the astrological anatomy of a breakdown. All right. Let's see if I can find this thing. Okay. I wonder if I can find him when he's on the video. There's, let me see if I can find this. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to play the ring video. That's even better. Okay, so this is Richard Sherman now. Okay. It's got to be what, like 2 a.m. or something like that. 2 a.m. and he's drank a huge bottle of vodka and another bottle of Courvoisier or something like that. So here he is, right here. Now, if you're Ray, are you going to open that fucking door? Now, somehow he comes back and he gets in, right? He gets in. And apparently the guy on the other side of the door, who is his uncle.
What's up, guys? Clashing here, and we got an update on the Richard Sherman saga as his 911 call was leaked out.
Okay, so apparently he had to spray him with mace, calm him down because he was losing his mind. And he just crashed his car. That's the other thing. He just crashed his car, and he left his car, and he walked to that house. Now, I don't know the backstory. I don't know why he lost his mind. I have no idea, except for the fact that now all of a sudden nobody wants him. Right? It's one of these things where when he was on top and he was, you know, one of the best cornerbacks in the league and talking shit and, you know, again, backing it up, everything was cool, right? It was cool. Now nobody wants him and he's losing his mind. And who knows what's going on with the family stuff. They had to call the cops. The cops came. One of the cops got injured. They had to use a dog to subdue him. He was denied bail. I mean, he was really out of control. Like there are young black males who have been iced, displaying the type of behavior that Richard Sherman displayed. Young males, period, right? Because he's Richard Sherman, it's not going to happen. And he actually was let out of his little detox center. No charges were pressed by the family. So now all of a sudden, Richard Sherman is kind of back to square one, but his life will never be the same. So I wanted to bring up this chart here because it truly is like the anatomy of somebody who is having a major fucking spiritual crisis astrologically. Okay, so this, again, I don't know his birth time, but we're just going to look at what some of these transits are. First transit, right here, Pluto-Mars conjunction. He's got Mars in Capricorn, has the inconjunct with Chiron and Gemini. Interesting, right? I mean, he has to deal with this, you know, kind of schizophrenic component with Chiron in this inconjunct with Mars. And what's really interesting is that a lot of people said, well, gee, how could he do that? You know, he does so much for the community, and you know that really is, you know, not consistent with his character. And I'm like, well, first of all, you don't really know him. Nobody really knows him. What you know is what he shares in front of the camera, what he does in the field, and that's who you know. You don't really know what his character is. And I would say with that inconjunct, like, it's kind of scary, actually. That Mars Chiron inconjunct in Gemini, kind of scary. And now Pluto retrograding, coming right back over to that on that Mars and hitting that inconjunct with Chiron. Well, there you go. I mean, you saw another side of Richard Sherman, whatever that side is. And he was losing his mind, right? Chiron in Gemini tends to be a little schizo and having to deal with, you know, compartmentalized kind of versions of reality. And in Sherman's case, you can kind of see that because he comes from Compton. You know, he comes from a family with a mother and a father, which is, you know, he had a better start than a lot of other Compton kids. And he went to Stanford. So he goes from Compton to Stanford. And in a lot of ways, that is a real Chiron and Gemini kind of experience. And then he goes off to Seattle, social justice warrior land. Then he comes and plays in San Francisco for, I think, for 2 seasons, which is, again, you know, super liberal, close to Stanford. So, but that Chiron in Gemini is really interesting in that he comes from South Central and he goes to Stanford. He's a part of this whole different world, right? And the idea with Mars here would be to reconcile that, or at least part of that story. That's not the complete story. It's part of it, but it's representative, I think. And then you have Mars up here, and it's intense, man. It's in Capricorn, so there's a lot of aspiration with Mars in Capricorn, and a lot of determination. And you know, football-wise, guys, fucking good player, very good, and smart. He's a smart dude. That's the other thing about Richard Sherman. He's got Mercury and Pisces, and he's got that sextile with Mars. He's quick. Mercury sextile Venus, kind of, you know, loquacious. But here's that Pluto. Look, he's lucky he's alive. I'm telling you. He is fucking lucky he's alive. With Pluto on his Mars, moving into that inconjunct with Chiron. The other thing is that he's got Neptune over here in kind of a wide conjunction with Mercury. So he's not thinking clearly. Certainly, if I was his personal astrologer with a Neptune-Mercury conjunction, I'd say, bro, you got to lay off the sauce with that Neptune-Mercury conjunction. That is not going to work for you. And Neptune is coming in here, right here, and is in, guess what? Square with Chiron. This guy's got to clean up. He's got to clean up. He has got to do some big time soul searching, especially with this Neptune Chiron square. And alcohol, of course, playing a role here. Right? He's lucky he's alive. He's lucky he's alive. Uranus right here, kind of close to his ascendant. What do we have? We got Uranus at is it 9? Let's see. Let me move this here higher. Okay. So Uranus is at 11. So just about 5 degrees off of his ascendant. Well, that may not be his ascendant. 7 degrees off Jupiter. So let's call it a Uranus-Jupiter conjunction. And here's the biggie, Uranus-Pluto opposition. That's the biggie right there. I'm telling you, this guy's fucking lucky to be alive. What does he have in Sagittarius? Nothing. He's lucky to be alive. Uranus-Pluto opposition, Pluto on top of his Mars, in conjunct with Chiron. And then we've got this this Neptune bad judgment, Neptune-Mercury conjunction, Neptune conjuncting his Trudeau. Like this could be one of those moments in his life that could be good. I'm telling you, it could be good. Like if he really dives into this moment, he could have the potential for some kind of a spiritual rebirth. He could. With Neptune conjuncting his Trudeau, this could be exactly what this thing is about. I'm not investing in Richard Sherman. I got to be honest with you. But look, if one of our global family figures it out and becomes a better person and ceases to do damage to himself, to do damage to others, and grows spiritually, then I'm all for it. Like, you know, carry on, brother. Chiron conjunct his sun. Look at that. That's the biggie, I think, because, you know, he's been this warrior, right? This Aries warrior. And there's Chiron there, and nobody wants him. He feels he can't define himself anymore by playing football and being this Aries. Like, it's not happening. He's vulnerable. And he, unfortunately, displayed some pretty, like, how do I say this? Like, kind of, you know, trite, characteristic sort of behavior, right? I mean, he just like, it's like, it was almost like a, you know, a caricature in some ways. You know, there's the drunk, raging black man. And I bet he fucking hates that. I bet he hates it. I bet he hates the fact that he did that, that he came across that way. Because he is actually a smart guy. But there it is right there, right? Chiron Sun conjunction. But he's got this yod, like Moon and Virgo. Oh, he's tough on himself. Moon, Pluto, yod to the sun. Oh boy. And look at that. Moon conjunction. Moon conjunction. Hitting that yod. Lot of criticism. Lot of self-judgment. Normally that moon's in a pretty good place too, though. Got the trine to Saturn, trine to Neptune, trine to Uranus, trine to Jupiter. The guy's got a lot of money. Moon, Jupiter trine, especially Jupiter and Taurus. He's got dough. But again, how much is that going to help? I mean, it certainly helps him with a lawyer. His public persona probably helped him a great deal in that situation. But there's that moon kicking in right there on that yod. Chiron's kicking in on that yod. This is the anatomy of a breakdown. This is the anatomy of a major life crisis, astrologically. And he is fucking lucky he's not dead. Because he could be, with that Pluto conjunction to Mars. He got into a wreck with his car, right? Which is Gemini. So Richard, you better get on your knees and thank God you're still alive. Because you get to have an opportunity to really come into that true node in Pisces. Good luck, man. There you go. The anatomy of an astrological breakdown. All right, 10:36. Been here for 2 hours. So I said I would go over this one chart, and I'm gonna do it. And if you didn't see the show on Friday with Russ Winter, I recommend that you do that. That's over on my website, 15minutesoflame.com. That's 15minutesofovflame.com. And we talk about the foundation of what's called Sabbatean Frankism. And I'm not going to go into a long sort of dissertation of that. You can watch a show. But there's a character who is generally considered like the progenitor of this, well, let's call it a cult. And that guy's name is Sabbatai Zvi, and he lived in Turkey. And he was Jewish and was what we would call a breakaway Jewish rabbi, in that he rejected the Torah and he embraced the Zohar, the Kabbalah and the Zohar specifically. And as a result of that, he turned Judaism upside down. And the idea was that they would, instead of court virtue and try to be godly, that they would go in another direction. That they would get into the body, and they would indulge in orgiastic rites. They would not observe the traditional Hebrew calendar. So he was an apostate, right? So this guy was he was eventually excommunicated. Like they kicked him out. Like the rabbi said, you're bad for business, buddy. You're out. So he was able to collect quite a few followers. And these followers were convinced by him mostly that he was the Messiah. And that in the year 1666, on June 6th of 1666, 666, that he, as the Messiah, would reign over earth, and that their version of their new age would begin. The only problem is that eventually he ran into stiff opposition. Now, this guy had a lot of followers, and a lot of wealthy people followed him. And there were a lot of people that were into, like, his doctrine, which was orgiastic, incestuous. I mean, these were people that lived outside of the moral code. They used the Zohar, so they're probably also doing sex magic rituals, and who knows what they're summoning, and who knows what else they're doing, like if they're kids that have gone missing in whatever town, city, or principality he was in. I mean, these were dark people, right? And they were using kind of the anti-virtue as the foundation of their belief system. And this was their guy. He was going to be their guy. So I was interested. I was curious. So what did this chart look like? Now, keep in mind that theoretically back then there was only Saturn because they couldn't see Pluto, Uranus, Neptune. But we're going to throw them in there and a few other things to find out, what would allow this guy to be so quote unquote charismatic, convert hundreds of thousands of followers. And not only that, but create the foundation in a lot of ways for the world we're living in now, which is inverted, right? Because that's what they did. They were into an inverted universe or an inverted morality. And that the idea ultimately was that they would be so consumed by debasement and sin that their downward trajectory would ultimately be met with an equal but opposite upward trajectory, and then they would get to God, right? So they're just going to be the Lord of the Flies on the way down, and on the way up, they're going to be, on the right-hand side of Yahweh, right? I mean, that was real. And by the way, that belief system is still happening. Look around the world. You're living in it right now. So I was curious, what has this guy got astrologically? So this is his chart. And it's very interesting in a lot of ways. And it brings us right back to where we started from at the beginning of the night, which is the sign of Leo. Born August 1st, my father's birthday, 1626. And he lived until 1676. And I'll tell you about his end game. Kind of interesting. So what do we have here? And again, I don't know his birth time. I'm just going to do a sunrise chart. So we have Mercury in Leo, Sun in Leo, Pallas right there, also in Leo, Uranus in Leo, Mars in Leo, True Node in Leo. This guy's got more fucking Leo than almost any Leo I've ever seen, right? And he's a Leo on steroids. He's got this Uranus-Mars conjunction, and Mars is in a square with Pluto. So there is your kind of weird, dark, what many people would call perverted morality. Like anything goes. Mars, Uranus, anything goes. Anything. And he's got this true node conjunct as Mars. So what is he rewarded for? He's rewarded, theoretically, right? Remember this. You're supposed to go towards your true node. That's what this guy did. And boy, did he ever, right? I mean, he kind of ran the table there for a while until eventually it caught up with him. But he's going to be unconventional. He has this Uranus, Leo. It's not conjunct his sun, but same sign. And he's got these interesting kind of early degrees here, right? And then everything breaks out at 20 with Pallas. And I would say that he probably had, besides whatever he was able to tap into with the Zohar, he probably had some innate charisma with this chart, super innate charisma. And I think with that Pallas in Leo, he'd be able to spot people that have power, and he'd be able to understand them in a way that maybe they thought he might have some power. So it's kind of an interesting chart, right? And he's got Venus in Virgo, which is where Venus is now. Venus is in Virgo now. He's got Venus in Virgo. So that's all going to be tighty-whitey, generally. And it's square Pluto, and he's got that moon in Scorpio, which is quite interesting. Quite interesting. So where's that? Is that moon? What is that moon square? Is it, let's see, we got moon square. Is that Neptune? Moon Neptune, so moon Uranus. Oh, moon Uranus square. Right. What is Venus squaring? Is Venus squaring anything? Yeah, just conjunctions. So moon Uranus squared. He's got moon in Scorpio. Okay, so with moon in Scorpio, he's going to go into dark places. And he's got a Moon-Pluto opposition. And his moon is square Uranus. This guy's a fucking pervert. That's what he was. No, seriously. This is Moon-Pluto opposition square Uranus, right? And he's got that Mars square too. Oh, this guy could go into dark places. I'm telling you. He could totally like violate sort of conventional morality right there. Boom. Especially that moon in Scorpio. In Venus isn't really, you got the conjunction with Mars right there, white conjunction, different signs. And then conjunction with Uranus again, like, hey, fuck my wife, please. Right. And that's what happened. They would do stuff like that. So this guy is like, wired. He was wired for the wildlife. And he did it in a way where he was like, like the king of the fucking gypsies, I'm telling you, with this chart. And now he's got this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction down there. That could be just totally spellcasting. Total spellcasting. And with Jupiter, I can see where this guy, astrologically, like he had some juice, right? Jupiter sextile Saturn, Jupiter sextile the moon. Is that right? No, Jupiter. Saturn sextile the moon. My bad. Yeah, there it is. What's Jupiter doing? Sextile Uranus, right? Yep, Jupiter sextile Uranus. Great at improvising. Totally great. This guy he was kind of a wizard. This guy's like a wizard king. You could see it in his chart. That said, he wasn't the Messiah. And he was actually captured by the Sultan of Turkey. And the Sultan of Turkey gave him three choices. He said, well, I can hang you. How would you like that? I'll hang you, crucify you. How'd you like that? I can get a group of archers and have them fire arrows at you simultaneously. And if you are who you say you are, you'd be able to stop that, wouldn't you? And no. Or you can convert to Islam. If you do that, you can live. He converted. Chiron, 29 Pisces. Here's your inconjunct coming down there with true node, coming down there inconjunct with Venus. Chiron right at the edge, retrograding. So he's going to rethink what he's going to do. He lives the next 10 years of his life basically as a converted Muslim, but probably really wasn't. And he got a stipend from the Sultan. Like, so this guy like is excommunicated, kicked out, not only just kicked out, but character was like completely under assault for what he did with, at that time, contemporary Judaism. And basically you say, hey, fuck you. We're going to fuck a lot. We're going to get into the fucking supernatural. We're going to talk to these little beings that we're able to conjure up here. And we're doing our own thing. And by the way, I got the power. And that's what he did until he ran into the Sultan of Turkey. But again, with all that Leo, it's like, oh man, this guy's got some shit going on here. Maybe I should respect him a little bit. Maybe he's more like me than I think other people are. Maybe that went down, or maybe it was a power trip. Like, hey, guess what? I turned him into a Muslim. Oh, who knows? Maybe he was doing something on the side. Whatever happened those last 10 years of his life, clearly he was not suffering. He was not suffering. But with this chart, I could see where with all that Leo and that Mars-Uranus conjunction, and even with like Mercury in trine with Chiron, and kind of understanding like people's like sensitivities, right? Vulnerabilities. This guy had some interesting hardware in a lot of ways, or software rather. Interesting, but also depraved. You can see the depravity, totally depraved. Boom, T-square right there. Moon Pluto opposition, square Mars, square Uranus. Yeah, off the chain. He doesn't have a lot of water in his chart either. See, that's the other thing too. So when you don't have a lot of water in your chart, like you kind of are a little light on the empathy and compassion side. And the water he does have is kind of challenged, like Moon in Scorpio, detriment. He's got what? Juno in Cancer, minor. Ceres in Cancer, minor. Chiron, 29, retrograde Pisces. That's it, man. So the only real kind of personal water is the moon. And it's engaged in like full scale degradation. There you go. A little sabotaged V for you. All right. I'm out of here. It's been an intoxicating evening. Oh, you're back? You going to say goodnight to your fans? You going to say goodnight to them? Where did you guys go? Where are you at? Here you are. You're over here. All right. 185 people. I'll be back tomorrow over on the 15 Minutes of Flame side of things. We got a lot of comments here. Let's see. He thinks he's a king. Yes, very much so. Very much so. All right, lots of comments. Dogma does no one any good. Yes, I agree. I agree. All right, hey, thanks everybody. Thanks for being here. It's always good to hang out with you on Sunday night. I'm going to have my information for my event this week. So if you guys are interested in going, come to my website, probably Tuesday or Wednesday. Hopefully we'll have some numbers and some figures ready to go. It's going to be great. I think I don't know what's going to happen after October. So you may want to play a little road trip so you can get some human contact in. Isn't that right? You want me to help you up here again? You want to say goodnight to your people? Come on. All right. You want me to say goodnight? All right. What do we say? Use your head in order to discern what's real and keep your heart open to what's possible. Good night, everybody. Hope you have really amazing dreams. See you.